A very belated Happy Father's Day to you and yours. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. We are back. This is, by my count, week 14 working from home. We are thrilled to have you here for another edition, a Monday edition of NFL Total Access. My name is Andrew Siciliano. Jamal Adams is tweeting again. Coming up in a second, we'll tell you what he said this time. But we begin this show with Dak Prescott. July 15th remains the deadline for people with franchise tags. Ian Rappaport to sign those long-term extensions. In the interim, Dak today went to the building and signed his franchise tender. It's worth $31.4 million. Why do it now, Ian?
Well, the timing is interesting because, of course, as you know, the Cowboys' virtual offseason program really ended just a couple days ago. And, of course, Dak Prescott did not take part in that. Did get an iPad early in the process, but from what I understand, didn't really participate in these Zoom meetings like every other offensive player. And why would he? He was not under contract. This is something that typically happens with players who are franchise tagged. So the virtual offseason was finished, and Dak Prescott signed his $31.4 million tag. What he did was lock in his money. It is now fully guaranteed for the 2020 season. Several other players who have been franchise tagged have done basically the same thing. Given the uncertainty for the season, this makes sense. However, Andrew, it does not mean anything about the potential for a long-term deal. My understanding is the Cowboys and Dak Prescott really are not close. He still would prefer a 4-year deal. The Cowboys want a 5-year deal. They've locked up all of their star players on these long-term deals. We'll see which side ends up giving in a little as we get closer to the July 15th deadline. But today's news really does not affect that waiting game, Andrew.
And I get it. Hey, pandemic, put pen to paper, lock in that 31.4. Ian, stay there. Want to ask you about Jamal Adams in a second. Let's show you some numbers here about that 31.4. Dak Prescott, as it stands now, if it's only the 1-year deal, is right behind Carson Wentz and roughly $3.5 million behind Russell Wilson. Again, it's till the 15th. David Carr, 23 days from now for the Cowboys and Dak to figure out that long-term deal. David, can you see any scenario, though, where let's say he is on the 1-year contract, that would at all affect the locker room or the football this fall?
No, not at all. The only way it's affecting the football now at this point is in a positive manner, because before this, as you heard Ian report, he wasn't involved in any of the off-season Zoom meetings or any of the teleconferencing or whatever they had going on, and that's your quarterback. And right now, the teams that have a distinct advantage are the ones with the quarterbacks that are basically the extension of the head coaches at this point, and they're handling all the on-the-field stuff if they're able to do that as a group, especially in these crazy times. And without Dak being able to do that, Andy Dalton's probably doing that. So it's really an interesting time, and it's very difficult if you don't have your quarterback locked up. Thank God that they actually did get him locked up. I don't care if it's a 1-year deal, a 5-year deal, whatever it is. He's going to play quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys this year. So now he can get to work with Mike McCarthy. I'm sure he's been doing some of that already, but there's a little bit of it that your agent tells you to keep a distance, you know, and you got to be a little bit where you're not really able to just pick up the phone and call Dak. So that's over now. Thank God that's over, and they can just go out there and play football. So we'll see what happens, but it's a positive if I'm a Cowboy fan.
Yeah, and it's a positive for Dak as well in the short term. $31.4 million is pretty good work still if you can get it. Thank you, David, who's back a little bit later as well. Here's the question, though. Is Dak going to be teammates with Jamal Adams? Jamal Adams is tweeting again. This after we told you last week that he would like out. He wants a trade from the Jets. Now, mind you, he is from Dallas. So keep that in mind when you hear this conversation in Dallas over the weekend.
Hey, what's up, bro?
What's up with it?
Hey, you coming to Dallas?
Hey, man, I'm trying, bro.
All right.
I'm trying, bro. I mean, he knows he's being filmed there, right? He knows the guy's got the phone out when he says that. Yes, of course he does. He's sending a message, and you know what? He's sending a message with this tweet as well. Moments ago, Jamal Adams responding to teammate Marcus May, also a safety. And look what he snuck there in the middle of the tweet. You deserve everything coming your way. I'm going to miss balling with you the most. Ian? He really wants out. Are the Jets going to cave? I mean, only one guy from that 2017 class has signed a second deal. That's Christian McCaffrey.
Right. There's so much uncertainty now given the coronavirus and the economics of the game in not just 2020, but the salary cap in 2021. We've seen very, very few teams give their star players rich extensions. It's understandable, I guess, why Jamal Adams is upset. He would like his money. Either way, Andrew, all of this news about saying goodbye to the Jets and I'll miss you, bro, this would seem to be very much news to the Jets. My understanding of where they are is they are not inclined to trade Jamal Adams. They would always listen. That's something that Joe Douglas made clear the last time we talked about this during the trade deadline. They really do have no plans to trade him. And if someone was going to give up maybe 2 first-round picks or a first-round pick plus give a huge new contract to a box safety, maybe a deal would get done. Either way, we are a long way from there. So for Jamal Adams to say goodbye to a teammate and wish him well, indicating his Jets tenure is over, I would imagine some people who are currently employed by the Jets would maybe take issue with that, but who knows?
Yeah, and they would probably say, well, you know what? Call me when training camp begins, whenever training camp begins, and let's see if Jamal is there now. The CBA would suggest he show up for training camp when it does begin. Yep. All right, thank you, Ian Rappaport. And the same goes for the Steelers. They do expect Ben Roethlisberger when they get back to training camp. Actually, I beg your pardon. Let's look at this instead. This is Jamal Adams and his PFF rankings. Just backing up here that Jamal Adams is good at the football. Even if Ian wants to call him a box safety. Even if. Bucky Brooks now with me on Total Access. Bucky, what do you think? Should the Cowboys make a move?
I mean, look, it's very tempting to make a move on one of the best defensive players in football. Jamal Adams and J.J. Watt are the only defenders that have 200-plus tackles, 10-plus sacks, and 25 PBUs in their first 3 seasons. He's everything that you look for in a game changer. He's a terrific player deserving of being the highest-paid safety. But if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you can't make this move. I love safeties, but safeties are nothing more than defensive running backs. Even though they give you all this production, you just don't know where they fit when it comes to the value. The Dallas Cowboys have kind of hitched their wagon to Dak Prescott. They have Ezekiel Elliott. They have Amari Cooper, all making mega bucks. They just don't have enough room to squeeze Jamal Adams into their salary cap structure.
Bucky, I wrote that down. Defensive running backs, really?
Yeah, like, people don't want to pay them. They just don't want to pay safeties.
Man, get LaDainian in here in a little bit. All right. Thank you, Bucky Brooks. I mentioned the Steelers before. Now here is Ben Roethlisberger on your television screen. Played only 2 games last year. Threw only 35 passes, but again, he is ready. And if you need a review of how that arm looks, here's what James Conner had to say.
And he's looking good. We've organized a couple, events where we'll work together, receivers and some backs, and he was throwing to us, and he's looking good. He's being that leader that he is, and the arms looking good. He's throwing it well. So for him, I'm just excited for him to get back in. And he's looking great. I know he's still fueled up, and I know he wants more wins and more rings before he leaves. So that's what everybody's goal is.
If you need numeric proof of the difference in the Steelers' offense with and without Ben Roethlisberger, here it is. The last 2 seasons, the numbers on the left, the numbers on the right with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph and whomever. And if you're in Pittsburgh, you know this. Maybe if elsewhere, you would have forgotten that Brian Billick, the last 2 years, the Steelers have missed the playoffs. Good to see you, Coach. They've come in second behind the Ravens of the AFC North. With Ben, is this a playoff team this year?
Well, the short answer is no, and that's not Ben's fault. That's an indictment of Ben. That's what's going on around him. Let's go back. Remember, in 2018, he had a monster year, better than 5,000 yards, 675 attempts, a 67% completion percentage, 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, but they went 9-6-1. Now, you go back to 2017 when they went 13-3. He didn't have quite those numbers, but he didn't have to. Why? Because Le'Veon Bell went off for better than 1,500 yards and 85 receptions. Antonio Brown had 100 receptions plus. So the question is, and we thought we were going to find out last year, but obviously the injury changed that. Can Ben, who's a future Hall of Fame quarterback, raise the level of those around him and have those kind of numbers? That remains to be seen. And so for Ben Roethlisberger, that's going to be the challenge in a very, as everybody is talking about, a very unique offseason. coming together and generating those numbers late in his career to see if indeed he can get them back into the playoffs.
He's 38 years old, and let's not forget, many would argue the Ravens have gotten better this offseason. That factors in this question here as well. Thank you, Coach. In his first 8 NFL seasons, LaDainian Tomlinson had a lot of points and had a lot of yards. The #1 offense in the National Football League with an 8-8 record, though, wouldn't have even made the playoffs if they had the expanded thing last year. They still would have been sitting on the couch and watching in January. Let's take a look at this edition of the Cowboys. We hit the roster reset button starting in Dallas in the NFC East. Take it away, Jane Slater.
All right, full disclosure, I've been looking for a reason to introduce my friends, and why not today? With the signing of Dak Prescott of that exclusive franchise tag, as Ian reported, we now wait to see if he'll get that long-term deal, but this at least means that he's contractually obligated to show up on time to training camp. Last year, we did not see this guy, Ezekiel Elliott, although his holdout meant that he got an extension 2 years ahead of time, which means he'll be there along with Tony Pollard, the rookie who's entering his second season. It was a pretty nice backup behind him. This was the big news this offseason. Amari Cooper signed to a long-term extension. As if he wasn't good enough for them at wide receiver, the Cowboys then got incredibly lucky by getting CeeDee Lamb at 17 when he fell to them. Already his jerseys are outpacing all other non-QB rookies. So, and of course, we've seen some of the gaudy workout videos. Also, a lot of analysts seem to forget Michael Gallup's name, but don't forget him. He steadily got better with each game and with each season. Blake Jarwin, they also locked in with the departure of Jason Witten. And then on the defensive side of the ball, let's not forget they went out and got Gerald McCoy and Dontari Poe, giving them a little bit more bulk on the defensive line. Not to mention they got a safety in Clinton Dix.
I mean, she brought props. That's awesome. Jane Slater, a roster I feel like I should bring. I have a Vince Scully bobblehead here. I'll just put this on the desk. LaDainian Tomlinson, Bucky Brooks, thank you all. Not bringing props. Let's talk about the Cowboys. LT, they had the best offense last year. Are they going to have the best offense in the NFL this year?
No, I don't think so. And honestly, I don't think they need to have the best offense. They had the best offense last year, and it didn't translate to wins. And I really think when you look at Mike McCarthy, look at his time in Green Bay. I don't believe he had a #1 offense ever with all those weapons that he had in Green Bay. It's about balance, and you got to have balance at certain times in order to win games. I'll give you an example. Last year, the Cowboys beat a lot of bad teams. You know, most of those 8 wins came against bad teams where they put up a lot of offense and everything looked great. But when they played the really good teams, they struggled, particularly throwing the football. So I don't believe it's their best chance to win throwing the football. I think they need to get back to being a little bit more balanced. That offense rolling through Ezekiel Elliott and that offensive line. And then you got all those big play wide receivers. You can take your shots throughout the game with those guys, but I don't think you necessarily need to be the #1 offense in football to win.
Yeah, balance would be nice here offensively and defensively. Bucky, what's the Cowboys' #1 issue?
Oh, the #1 issue on defense is all about their pass rush. LaDainian Tomlinson, look, he illustrated it perfectly. When the Dallas Cowboys have been able to win in the past, it's because they play keep away with their offense. They run it, they salt away games, they don't expose that defense to a lot of opportunities. Now, this offense is more explosive, so teams have to chase points. I don't know if they have another pass rusher outside of DeMarcus Lawrence that can get it done. Alden Smith has missed the last 4 years. Randy Gregory has only played 28 games since he came into the league because he's been suspended 4 times. Who is going to be Robin to DeMarcus Lawrence's Batman? They have to have someone that can give them contributions. As a pass rusher, I don't know right now if that guy is on the roster because we haven't seen those guys play in a long time.
They added a couple of interior linemen, Dontari Poe and Gerald McCoy, notably here. But again, your point about the pass rush, they still need to figure out how to do that. Thank you, LaDainian Tomlinson. Thank you, Bucky Brooks. Although no one doubts they have the offense here. Don't forget about the guy that had 1,000 yards last year, not named Amari Cooper. Don't forget about Michael Gallup.
If Michael Gallup were diagnosed with having middle child syndrome, I don't think I could blame him. Amari Cooper has his inconsistencies, but is still being drafted within the first 3 rounds. New kid on the block, CD Lamb, is part of a fresh crop of rookie wide receivers expected to take the league by storm. But there's been a notable lack of buzz for Gallup, who matched Cooper in nearly every statistical category last year, despite playing 2 fewer games. Opportunity shouldn't be an issue. Last season's Cowboys still had 5 players catch 50 or more balls and 3 players go over 800 receiving yards, even with Ezekiel Elliott grabbing 355 touches. In 2020, Gallup has a comparable weekly scoring ceiling to Cooper without the frighteningly low floor. Combine that with his middle round ADP, and that should be enough to make him a better draft bargain. But if you need a bit more, a Cowboy named Gallup, well, that just seems too good to be true. NFL Fantasy is back with a redesigned draft feature. Download the app or sign up at NFL.com/fantasy to start or join your league today.
All right, Marcus Grant. They say if you have 2 quarterbacks, then you have none. But what's the ruling if you have 2 running backs? After the break on NFL Total Access, LaDainian and Tomlinson, that one is
day 1 of the 2nd annual NFL Quarterback Coaching Summit, put on in partnership with the Black College Football Hall of Fame. The idea is to give coaches on the offensive side of the ball networking opportunities and resources. Among the presenters, Titans coach Mike Vrabel, who talked about putting together a championship staff, as well as former Raiders and Browns coach Hugh Jackson, who talked about what to expect the first 30 days on the job. There also was a roundtable featuring several members of the NFL's Workplace Diversity Committee. A list that included Steelers President Art Rooney II and Giants President John Mara, who admitted he was amazed how many people of color are in offensive coordinator and quarterback coaching jobs, and said other owners would be surprised as well. As Doug Williams put it, the pipeline is full. The important thing now is opening the valve. The summit continues on Tuesday.
All right. Thank you, Tom Pelissero, for that. The reason I wanted LaDainian to stick around here, he's got a great piece right now, a really kind of moving, heartfelt piece, honestly, LaDainian, on NFL.com. It's not about coaching, but it's about your struggle, your life, and how you wish, in this kind of an open letter to current players, that you had spoken up more about social issues when you were a player. I get the feeling it was kind of cathartic, like it was a weight off your back here to write that article.
Yeah, Andrew, it was. And simply because I question myself a lot of the times, now, especially in today's climate, I question, could I have done more back when I played? When I had the platform that I had at that time as one of the high-profile National Football League players, could I have done more? Why didn't I do more? And so, I really just decided, it really came about, once I retired and all these social issues started to come to the forefront. Stuff like, Trayvon Martin, the situation with George Zimmerman murdering Trayvon Martin, and then the Black Lives Matter movement started. And then the Colin Kaepernick deal happened, where he started protesting and kneeling for police brutality. And so you start to question yourself when you see all these things going on. Man, am I doing more? This is my community. I come from these places. Why didn't I do more? And so this was an opportunity for me to reflect and then try to pay it forward, if you will, to talk to our current players.
And you've done so much, and no one questions, LT, what you do now in the community, you and your wife and your family, whether it be in Texas or in California with Team America here. Part of what you write is that you were reluctant, right? What does it mean to you now that this group of players isn't afraid to speak up?
Well, I think they realize that there's power in unity, and more than ever, you have an opportunity to represent your own communities. And here's the deal, Andrew. Guys that make it to the National Football League or professional sports, they are their community that they come from, meaning they have the loudest microphone in their community. So they are the heroes of their community. So when they speak out and they stand together and they speak on these social injustices, they become the community. The community rallies behind them. And so I'm so excited and happy that all these guys, or not all of them, but most of them, have taken this stance to find their voice. And I hope that many more continue to speak out to find their voice, because they need to understand at this moment, this time in history, you have to capture this moment, because that's when history changes. And we're at the point where you have this opportunity. All the players, they need to capture it right now. Don't let it pass you by.
And you say there at the end, you say don't stop, and you say you're proud of today's generation of players here. Speaking is one thing, action is another. What do you want to see them do now that people are listening, LaDainian, with this platform that they have?
Yeah, as I just mentioned, it starts in your own community. And really now it's about making changes at the legislative level, Andrew. And that actually starts in your own community at the state, at the local and state level. So start to understand how these things work at the local level and the state level in order to change these laws. And as I mentioned, as you start to learn in your own community how laws are changed, now you galvanize a whole group of people, a whole community behind you, because your voice, ultimately, it really does. It speaks louder than everyone else. So use this opportunity. Use your platform to do more. We can always do more. And right now, our country needs us, especially our Black communities.
And your voice carries that much more weight, LaDainian Tomlinson. We heard that in Canton. We hear it now. And everyone else can read it, those words, your words, to current NFL players on NFL.com. Great piece, man. Loved it. Thank you, sir. As we continue here on a Monday edition of NFL Total Access, there's a common assumption of the NFL that the quarterback is the most important player on the team, and that's probably true. But is that the case in... What if I told you? What if I told you that no one's won the NFC East back-to-back in 15 consecutive seasons? 15 years. Last team to do it was the Eagles. They're going to try to do that again this year. But before we figure out who wins the NFC East in 2020, we have some very, very pressing questions. Michael Robinson, take it away.
What's up, guys? This is Players Only. And guys, we're going to jump right into it. We're talking NFC East. And Willie, I'm going to start this one off with you.
Let's do it.
Who is more important to their team? Dak Prescott, Saquon Barkley, Carson Wentz, or that pass rusher out there in Washington and Chase Young?
I know the quarterback position, Mike Robb, is the most important position on the field, but not in this case. It's Saquon Barkley with the New York Giants. You talk about a guy, when he's on the field, 22 points. When he's not, 9 touches. The next closest guy was Shepard with 63. That tells you how important he is to this offense. 44% of the offense goes through Saquon Barkley. He can catch a flare pass out of the backfield, take it for 70. You can hand it off to him. He can take it for 70. This offense leans on Saquon Barkley. If I'm a defensive coordinator, the number one weapon I'm trying to take away when we play the Giants offensively is Saquon Barkley. You cannot let him get going with running the football. You can't let him get going out of the backfield as a pass catcher. He is one of the most explosive players in the NFL.
Man, I love to hear you guys talking about these Nittany Lions like this. Oh, man.
Oh, man, get out of here.
And y'all talk about how the Big Ten don't have no speed. Willie, you talk about him going 80? What? Being one of the most explosive players in the National Football League is Saquon Barkley. And yes, Willie, I agree with you. It's Saquon Barkley, right? Every time this guy, right, the perfect insurance policy for a first-year head coach is to just turn around and hand the football off. And also, the young quarterback, and Daniel Jones, right? He hasn't seen all the defenses out there. He's going to get confused at times. Guess what, guys? Turn around and hand the ball off to the most yeah, I'm going to say it. He is the most explosive player in the National Football League. And I know what y'all going to say, Mike. You're just saying that because he's a Nittany Lion and all that. I'm not, guys. Race him. Now, D-Hall, you might.
No, I ain't going to race the man. I ain't going to race the man. But, it's some other explosive guys in the league that I know would love to race Saquon Barkley. Look, I love both of you guys' answers. The same guy, Saquon Barkley. And I could easily jump on that bandwagon and say Saquon, too, because he is dynamic. But let me take you into a little room for a second and just think about this for a little bit.
Okay.
I want a facilitator, man. You heard Willie say it before he backtracked, talking about the quarterback is the most important position on the field. I'm going with Dak Prescott, man, the leader of the #1 offense last year. And what does Jerry Jones do? Goes out and gets the man another weapon in CeeDee Lamb. And so when you think about what Mike McCarthy is going to do with this offense, man, he had some time to sit down and study his playbook and revamp it and bring it up to speed to today's age of football with the mobility that Dak Prescott can bring to the table, man. I think the sky is the limit for this offense, man, with Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Ezekiel Elliott. You talk about Saquon being amazing, which he is, but I tell you what, my boy Zeke is not far behind. He might not be a home run hitter, but he is a bruiser. And so you put all that in a stew of just a gumbo pot, man. I tell you what, I'm taking Dak Prescott and his boys.
So you trying to tell me Dak is more important to the Cowboys than Ezekiel Elliott? Come on, D-Hawk.
Dak is going to be probably the highest paid player in the league. That makes it pretty important.
Whoa. But we all know that has nothing to do with ability. That has all to do with timing and being a quarterback. We know that, right?
I'm just trying to win the argument right here. I think I'm going to win it, though.
I will say Dak is really important, but Dak has a lot of help. This offense runs and operates and is on Saquon's back right now. If you look at the production and the things that he did, it's Saquon. You take him out of the fold, then it's not even close. Dak is extremely important, and I love Dak, but man, he's got a lot of talent around him as well.
As a defensive player, though, Willie, let's wrap with this. As a defensive player, you rather stop Saquon or you rather stop Dak and
D-Hall, you play defense. You know it. What's the number one thing you got to stop?
I ain't worried about Saquon, dog. It's the run, but I got big dudes like you to help me out. I got big dudes like you to help me out. I ain't worried about that. Ain't nobody help me on that Autobahn but me.
Whoa. Hey, guys, that's why we call this players only. We get the juice going. This is from the aces. This is who we think are the most important players in the NFC East.
I love how Mike Robb is channeling Mike Mayock, Brian Billick, David Carr with a whoa. Can't believe no one picked Wentz or Chase Young, but we'll narrow this down, Brian Billick, to Dak Prescott and Saquon Barkley. Who are you building the franchise around?
Well, you've already heard, obviously, you usually have to start with a quarterback, but I think Saquon Barkley is a generational player. Now, the last 3 years, the plus 300 carry guys, they're 90-plus receptions. When you combine that with what now that gives Daniel Jones a chance to kind of hand the ball off, build it around Saquon Barkley. I agree with Willie. He's the best back in the National Football League. I think the Giants need for Barkley to be that best player. Dak Prescott, again, Ezekiel Elliott, again, you look at what they've done. All they did offensively, number one in the league last year, and then went 8-8 and didn't make the playoffs. So I got to go with Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, Coach, I completely agree with you. Just from a quarterback's perspective, whenever I'm given a chance to give a quarterback credit and say he's the most valuable player, I'm definitely going to pick the quarterback, except when it's in a case of Saquon Barkley, just because of what he brings to the football team. And when you walk out there with Saquon next to you and you're in the shotgun formation, they automatically have to play a defense where they're going to give you one-on-ones and stop your run that way. And when they can do that and they can drop everyone else in the coverage, it makes the game so difficult. But with Saquon Barkley back there and his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, to line him up and hand off inside zone, just to get the ball in his hands, teams have to account for him. And that makes your wide receivers better. It makes your tight ends better. They've went out and they've spent the first, the third, and the fifth round pick on getting some offensive linemen in there. So they're going to bolster that offensive line. Teams are going to have to really make a declaration of how they're going to stop this offense by lining up close to the line of scrimmage. Daniel Jones and his wide receiver is going to go out there and light it up just because Saquon's on the field. So for me, I got to go with Saquon Barkley.
You guys, if neither of you is going to pick a Cowboy, I am now obligated to make you talk about the Cowboys. All right? So, David, let's do this one. Who's more important to the Cowboys' success, the quarterback or the running back, Dak or Ezekiel Elliott?
Well, obviously, the quarterback, yes, it's the most important position, not just because I play it in the league, but at the same time, just to back to my previous point, it's Zeke, because if you don't have that guy back there, then the threat of that guy really taking over a football game. You heard Willie McGinnis talk about it earlier. The number one thing you have to do is you have to stop the running back. You have to stop him from getting massive chunks of yards, just taking the soul of your defense with you. Yes, Dak has to be better. He has to play great. He's valuable, very valuable to this team's success. But, man, if you don't have Zeke out there doing what he does day in and day out and giving your offense a base, something to just count on first and second down, I just don't know where you can go from there. But for me, it's definitely the run game and Zeke.
Yeah, this is the thing I love about the job I have now with the media. I get to talk out of both sides of my mouth because I just talked about the passion of Saquon Barkley over. I'm going to say Dak Prescott because for the very reason we talked about, Ezekiel Elliott's a phenomenal player, 300-plus carries. That got him to 8-8, and the head coach got fired. So clearly, Mike McCarthy needs for Dak Prescott to be that guy. He needs to be that guy that can take the team on his back, take him to that next level. They can lead the league in yards, and they can run the ball real well, but Dak Prescott needs to be that guy. So I think from that standpoint, he has to be the most important player. Certainly Michael McCarthy, he knows it's a known commodity, and Ezekiel Elliott, that's easy to look at and, okay, this is what we can do with him, but his number one job, his number one focus has to be to get the most out of Dak Prescott.
And re-upping our top story today, Dak Prescott has signed his franchise tender. No long-term deal yet, $31.4 million. Always a pleasure. Brian Billick and David Carr. Thank you both. As we continue here on NFL Total Access in 2019, Kyler Murray was the only rookie quarterback to finish in the top 10 with the fantasy. 18.5 points a game.